Mr. Speaker, throughout this session, I want to hold the NDP to account for their soaring justice, child and family services and healthcare costs due to their continuous failure to provide all Manitobans actual access to adequate food and shelter and even to running water. In the fall, I presented to the Frontier Centre for Public Policy potential cost savings to the NDP if they would only spend our tax dollars more humanely. The Frontier Centre called it common sense. I asked the Premier, why does he continue to spend so inefficiently and so ineffectively while so many Manitobans continue to suffer, with the result that he will not meet his deficit and balanced budget target for 2014?
Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the question from the member for River Heights because it allows us again to indicate what we've done to reduce overhead expenses in the government. First of all, there were 13 RHAs put in place by the members of the official opposition, the Progressive Conservative Party of Manitoba. We've reduced that to 5. When the Norrie Commission recommended that we reduce the number of school divisions in Manitoba. When we came into office, there were 54. We have now reduced them down by over a third, Mr. Speaker. You will see, there was a recommendation brought forward in 1997 that some new municipalities should be at least in the order of 1,000 residents. We are now looking at what we can do to have municipal mergers that will create more efficient units out there that will allow for economic development. We've just merged together liquor and lotteries, Crown corporations, and seen the result of a $3 million savings in administration, which goes along with the projected $10 million savings from RHAs. Mr. Speaker, if the member from River Heights has a practical, concrete suggestion of where we can reduce spending and target our spending more efficiently.
Order, please.
Mr. Speaker, in this year's budget, the Premier's spending $360 million on his all-aboard anti-poverty strategy. A strategy that's been an abysmal failure, as Dr. Frankel has so eloquently illustrated. Now, Make Poverty History in Manitoba and dozens of other organizations have called upon this government to spend a fraction of that $360 million, a sum of $18.5 million, on increasing the shelter rates for those on social assistance so that mothers will not have to spend their children's food budget on paying for the rent. I ask the Premier, will the NDP invest $18.5 million a year so that all Manitoba will have shelter and can have enough food to eat? This is the humanitarian thing to do.
I appreciate the question again from this member from River Heights, Mr. Speaker, because when we added $48 million back so the Manitobans would all, no matter where they came from, have access to the National Child Benefit, the member opposite voted against that. Shame. When we put over $8 million into rent aid, what used to be called shelter benefits, so that people would have access to that, the member opposite voted against that. When we increased the targeted benefit for persons with mental health issues, an extra $200 a month, so that they can have proper, stable housing first we call it, the member opposite voted against that. When we launched a major commitment to expand affordable social housing in Manitoba by over 1,500 units, and we're ahead of that schedule right now on that 5-year plan, and that included rent supplements and controls on the rent that people pay in those units, the member opposite voted against that. So if the member opposite's really concerned about increasing benefits to low-income people, let him explain to the public and the members of this legislature why he has voted against every single measure we've taken in that regard, including increasing...
Order, please. Ministers, first minister's time has expired.
Mr. Speaker, the Premier's on another wiggle rant. October 17th, October 17th, Make Poverty History Manitoba and many others came to the legislature to urge the government to raise shelter rates to help poor children in our province. The Premier, in not acting, is abdicating his social responsibility. Absolutely. Today is the International Day of the Child. Yet yesterday, the Premier's throne speech put the fast forward on express liquor sales and gave the slow boat to poor children.
Exactly.
That's a shame.
If the Premier isn't convinced,
Bank rate in the country.
if the Premier isn't convinced of the need to increase shelter rates, I ask the Premier, will he come with me to see the long lineups at the Shalom Mission this evening or any other evening during the session and talk directly to the people who are standing out in the cold because they don't have the shelter rates which
Order,
are
please.
appropriate?
Order, please. Question's been posed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I could see the member is squirming for not answering his own the question put to him about why he has voted against every major benefit improvement we have made in Manitoba. Again, when we had the throne speech yesterday, we announced we want to expand the labor force participation in this province by 75,000 jobs over the next 8 years. Those are jobs that are going to be available to all Manitobans if they have the training and the support to be apprentices, to graduate from high school, to get the training they need to enter the labor market. That is the best solution to poverty, is to having people working in Manitoba, which is why we're proud to say we have one of the lowest unemployment rates in the country, both for young people and for families. The member should support a strategy that grows the economy, that allows people to have more jobs and allows people to have more housing at an affordable rate. That's what we're doing, and that's why we increased the minimum wage. That's why we committed to more housing, and that's why we made the National Child Benefit available to every Manitoban, along with rent supplements and rent aid.
Order,
and he
please.
voted against.
Order, please. First Minister's time has expired.